But to actually have Jesus appear as a being that I could talk to was something different. I wasn't thought of, Jesus is up in the heavens and in the other dimensions, but not as a being that I could actually talk to.
Welcome to the Four Leaf for Life Reiki podcast. Reiki energy and spiritual tools to anchor you into your most powerful healing potential. Inner peace and well-being is possible for everyone, especially you, friend. Lourdes Lebron from Rest Relaxation Reiki. Welcome, Lourdes.
Thank you for having me again. I love our conversations. It's always exciting.
I thought it would be fun for us to explore the topic of mysticism. I did that in the last podcast, and I'm like, maybe this is a theme that I want to continue indefinitely. I love it.
I'd love to talk about some of the experiences I've had and talk about your experiences as well.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
It
So,
is a lot of fun because when I started Reiki, I didn't realize that mysticism would go hand in hand with it for me, and at least in my experiences. And I'm always amazed at what happens. Even now, I'm still in shock. And, it's been at least 15 years on YouTube and at least 17 years doing Reiki. So it's given me plenty of time to develop what I'm doing and to encounter these wonderful experiences. One that really stuck out for me was when I met Jesus. Now, I'm like, I was brought up Catholic, no big deal, Jesus is fine. But to actually have Jesus appear as a, a being that I could talk to was something different. I wasn't thought of, Jesus is up in the heavens and in the other dimensions, but not as a being that I could actually talk to. And to experience that love, and that happened during meditation. It had started as a guided meditation because I can't do meditations. It's just too much for me. And I left the guided meditation, didn't know what happened. And all of a sudden, I had been doing Reiki on myself during the meditation, and Jesus appeared. And I was like, "You're really here?" And he go, "Yes." And I'm like, "Really?" And he was like, "Yes, I just want to bring you love." And it was such a simple message. And yet it filled my whole body with this light. And that's the best way of putting it. But when I met Muhammad, that was interesting because I was grew up Catholic. I didn't know Muhammad from anything. And I mean, I knew it from classes I've taken and stuff like that. But he was more grounded than Jesus energy, yet it still had the same love. And it's so hard to explain, but there was a groundness with him. There was this sense of knowing him on a deeper level. And that's,
fascinating. What do you mean by knowing him on a deeper level, if you don't mind my asking?
yeah, well, that was just it. It felt as if I remembered him from the past, that I've encountered him before, that he has been part of my life and I didn't know it, which was so different because it felt like a member of the family. You encounter a long lost member of the family. And it was so wonderful to experience that. Now, this happened when I was doing Reiki. And this is now years after I had been attuned. This wasn't
Mhm.
when I began the attunements. My attunements, my first two attunements, I couldn't feel them. I mean, I was lightheaded, but there wasn't anything major. For the third attunement, all of a sudden there was an animal by my feet. And I was like, there's an animal touching my feet. And it felt like it could have been a dog or a cat, something like that. And they're like, there's no dog or cat. I go, yes, there is. I'm seeing this dog and cat, this animal form, right? I could feel it. And it was so amazing because for the first two, nothing. And that's why I tell everybody, every experience is different with Reiki, everyone. The first two, I didn't feel them, but there was such a difference in my life. I could see colors brighter. I could see auras. I could see things that I hadn't seen before. So when I started feeling an animal, I go, this is odd. This is really odd. Something's happening here. But now, what happened with your attunements? And now I'm curious, since we were talking about it.
Yeah, it's interesting as you're saying that you had this experience with Jesus. After my child died almost a decade ago, my son from cancer,
Mhm.
I started to have these almost like rememberings and waking dreams, I'll call them, because I wouldn't really be in meditation. I would be completely here in this, the ordinary reality, but I would somehow be just reflecting and able to go back and forth.
Yes.
And I had a real sense of the energy of Jesus and Mary and Mary Magdalene as well, much to my shock, as you had noted, because I wasn't in any way religious, which of course we know that these are spiritual energies, and religion is just one aspect or one way to connect. So for me, it was a very poignant and loving message that really brought me to tears, that I was seen, I was witnessed in my grief and suffering, and I was loved. That when you have something tragic happen, especially with respect to a young child, when you're parenting them, there is such a feeling of responsibility
Mhm.
and failure when something, when they die. Like if your child dies and you've seen them suffer unimaginable things with cancer, it is so hard to find that spark of goodness and of joy and feeling like there is something bigger to connect with. But for me, I couldn't imagine that there was a greater spirit that would allow that to happen. And I also couldn't imagine that there wasn't a greater spirit and that I wouldn't be able to connect with my child. So I had many different journeys. I'll call them journeys because for me, it's like a journey. It's like a meditative journey experience, but I'm very here in the present as well. And this is something that I was never able to do. I had no understanding or no ability to connect with spirit that I'm aware of before my child died. This was totally triggered and the catalyst of that deep grief and despair and that seeking and that searching. So I have a memory of connecting with Mother Mary as well and just feeling absolved as a mother for whatever perceived failures or how I let that happen, or however you want to phrase that. For me, it's interesting because it's a real feeling. It's this poignant, it's this opening of the heart. It's often described as this bliss, connecting with the other realms. For me, it's been more this incredible poignancy of everything, of joy, of sorrow, of love. It's like the whole aspect of everything that we can experience in life. And it just brings me to tears.
I
Yeah.
totally get it because I had one experience, many experiences, but one experience was when I experienced creation energy. Now I was sending Reiki, I was doing Reiki, and all of a sudden I found my higher self was taking me on this journey. And we went back to the singularity that caused the Big Bang. And I was surrounded by my soul family. We were all there experiencing this most beautiful energy. I can't even explain. It brought me to tears that day. I cried so much from the absolute beauty of this. Since then, I've channeled some of that energy. I can never go and experience it again the same way, but I'm able to channel some of that. In Catholicism, there's the communion of saints. Well, this was the communion of the soul family. This was that union where all these beings of love and light, we were all, and I want to say space, but it wasn't space, it was another dimension. And we were seeing this creation happen, the Big Bang, and how it just, everything came into being, everything exploded out. That's still, to me, one of the most beautiful experiences of Reiki, that have I experienced mystically, where it just, to this day, I have not been able to stop experiencing that energy since that happened. And it was everything you said. It was everything. It was love. It was compassion. It was hope. It was sorrow as well for everyone who couldn't enjoy that energy as well. So there was that combination, and the heart does open up. You are right. That's the best way of saying it. The heart opens up, and it doesn't open up to just you. It opens up to every other soul and every other dimension. It's the most amazing thing, and it's not something that would have happened without Reiki.
Beautiful. So that brings us to, I imagine if people are listening to this, and these are quite amazing experiences that we're talking about, and they may think, well, wow, I couldn't do that. So when you were younger, before you were attuned to Reiki or initiated in Reiki, did you ever have any of these type experiences?
Yes, I've been intuitive most of my life. So I remember when I was, I think I was 6, I had a younger sister who died. So I remember being in the funeral parlor, and I was 6, because my parents took us to the funeral parlor to try to understand. My mother was very religious, and everybody was upset and crying. I go, she's fine. Why are you crying? I could sense her. I go, she's fine. Why are you crying so much? I could not understand that because I sensed my sister there. So it was like, what was the issue? And I always could see and hear things. So what I found was that the Reiki developed this even more than usual. It was just, I always had that sense of something more. Like I said, my mother was religious. So I accepted angels, I accepted saints, I accepted all of them. But with Reiki, what I found was I was able to channel easier. So for me, I remember working, one lady in particular, she went to my home and I was working on her, and I didn't know her mother had died. I think it was a couple months before, and her mother came in, and she brought in the most beautiful love energy. I was crying from the love she had for her daughter. Her daughter was crying from the love she felt from her mother. And it was the most beautiful thing, that mother energy again. There's such a beauty to that energy. And it is specifically mother energy. It's not any other type. And, the other experiences are all wonderful and they're amazing. But mother energy, there's just nothing like it. And that one always stuck with me, that one. And she came in several times for her daughter. And then I've had fathers come in for their daughters, but they come in differently. It's so funny. It's a different energy. And when the fathers have come in, they've come in with different songs. A lot of them come in with songs, whereas they're doing Broadway tunes. I know some Broadway songs, but not all the songs that are coming in, or songs that I have no idea where this comes from. I'll do lyrics. I'll say lyrics, and they're like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, oh, good. I'm glad it makes sense to you because I have no idea what that means. So, but it's different.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting that we're talking about mediumship as well, right? Because even though I know I wouldn't say that I'm a medium, I off and on do get spirit from the other side nudging me as well. One of the more recent sessions that I did with Reiki, I had the sense of
a can of pop being opened and it being poured into the lady's heart. And I was like, what? No, do you really want me to say that? And it was like, yes, you need to say that. Now, this is interesting because sometimes we have a concept of what the symbolism, what the messages are, but other times, in my experience anyway, I just have to trust that the most random things are really important. It's really important for me to disclose or to tell people what I saw, because sometimes that can be the most significant thing. In this particular lady's case, she had recently lost her father, and I heard pop, right? Pop.
Oh,
And he
okay.
always had like a can of cola beside him drinking pop. So she immediately knew that it was him, and she had that heart opening and the tears and the feeling, and felt really reassured, how it feels when you feel that somebody that you love on the other side is with you.
That is so funny because I think, like you said, mediumship may come with it. And sometimes that trust that what the message you're getting is the right message. And sometimes it's a matter of, like you do, I ask, okay, should I be saying this? Is this real? And it is real, but we're not used to it. We're very logical. So we're used to just, if it's not black and white, why should I repeat this? I'm going to look like a nut. So, but it's true. We have to repeat what we say. The Broadway tunes is one thing. Or one person I worked on, I was seeing hamburgers. I'm vegan. I don't eat hamburgers. And I was tasting a cheeseburger. And I go, what is it with cheeseburger? He goes, I just had cheeseburger for lunch. And cheeseburger is my favorite. And I'm like, okay, this makes sense. But it's that sensing of stuff from the Reiki. The Reiki makes us more sensitive. I find that when we're picking stuff up, it may be random to us, like you said, but it's not random to the people receiving. And it means so much.
Yeah. And the way that I've been shown from spirit to talk about it or discuss it with my clients is I'll bring it up. If it were me, I would look at the symbolism of it. And if it doesn't ring a bell, then I just let it go. I'm just like, okay, just let it go. Maybe it will be something that, in a week or two, you may say, oh, I know what it is now, or it may not as well. I trust that whatever the reason that I'm supposed to say it, even if I don't get the satisfaction, right? My little ego being patted, kind of, that they understand immediately that no matter what happens, I have to let myself become disengaged from the outcome and just allow the client to be the master of their experience. So I find that really fascinating.
Yes, I agree. And it's so funny because I I just did a live stream on the master number 111. And I've read everything. I see it all the time too. I just say, okay, it's okay. And many times it could be angels trying to get in touch with people. It could be time to manifest. But when I was doing the live stream, I was told it was an activation. That live stream was an activation for the people who were going to watch it and people who were going to see it. And I'm like, are you sure? I go, this isn't my usual live stream. And they're like, it's an activation. That's it. Don't keep thinking, and just let them know it's an activation so that if things start happening to them, they understand that why it's happening. And I was seeing the molecules in the body, all the people who were there and are going to watch it. It was something embedded in the molecules that the 111 was going to activate. So it was so important for them to know that 111 was that activation. And then I kept seeing the molecules like start lighting up. Like if you were playing a pinball game, things started lighting up in the people who were getting it. And then the most random thing was French fries and ketchup. I go, excuse me? I'm here looking at the body and looking at light. And you're saying, and they go, let somebody needs to know French fries and ketchup. It's going to be validation for them. So I said, okay, French fries and ketchup. And yes, it was validation for 2 or 3 people on the live stream. But where that came from, when I'm seeing all these, it's not stuff we can make up.
No, that's the incredible part of it, isn't it? Like, we couldn't make this up.
It is. And I remember when I had my daughter and I in a car, we had a really bad car accident where we were hit by a truck, hit the guardrail, and hit by another car. We walked out of it. How we walked out of that is still beyond me. And I was just upset. It was my daughter lost her glasses and she has a hard time. She can't see without them. People were hurt. The people who hit us were more hurt than we were. And we were hurt. We had challenges, but they were in really bad state. The truck driver was really upset, and it was a brand new car. So I was like, how many hours in the hospital? We were just, yes, you have concussions. Yes, yeah. I'm like, yeah. Went back home, went to bed in pain, and I kept just giving myself Reiki. And I go, I don't know how we're going to go through this, because everything that happened. And then all of a sudden there was a sense of peace. And it says, you're going to get through it. Everything's going to be all right. And then there was a sense of peace afterwards. And not saying that there weren't challenges afterwards, but I knew that voice told me it was going to be okay. And that it was going to be fine. And it was. At that time, it was like, what? Oh, what? That it made the difference. It made me be able to go through that period of life. It was like months of therapy and stuff like that. And it was like, I wouldn't have been able to if it hadn't been for that voice. And I know that voice was one of the guides. There's no other way to put it. How do you explain things like that? You don't, there's no way.
And it has such power to really help us move away from that suffering in trauma.
Exactly.
To find that tether to be able to hold on. And so that's why I like talking about mysticism and having these type of experiences, because they're healing on a spiritual level, on a soul level. And that is the type of healing that we encounter. It's not just about helping someone with the physical issues, which is very important, obviously, when you're in pain. But it's so multifaceted and such a gift. I just find it to be such a gift in life to be able to share and to experience myself. Having lost a child, honestly, without spirituality and Reiki in particular, I'm not sure where I would be. I feel that I might potentially be very closed off and really stuck in a deep suffering. I know that it helped me to hold both hope and sorrow, because sorrow is part of my experience. And I think that that is available for so many people that are suffering, that are grieving, that are experiencing traumas. That's one of the reasons that I love to share, especially on YouTube, when we're able to freely share with anyone that would like to participate or would like to receive that particular frequency of energy. I think it's really interesting that we met. Lourdes and I met when we were both taking a certification program with Cindy Dale, and we're both certified as 4-pathway energy healing professionals. And so within that year-long certification, we would have explored many different ways of connecting with the divine, connecting with spirit, connecting with soul, with guides, and different pathways to help anchor those healing frequencies in. I'm curious to know, Lourdes, is there one particular, I know there would be so much, but just for the sake of conversation and how interesting that was, is there one particular thing that stands out to you from that certification that is mystical, that really enhanced that mysticism for you?
The Imaginal Pathway. Okay. The Imaginal Pathway is, if you want to put it, a different plane of existence, a dimension, where we can meet up with, for me, stars. I'm a star seed, so star family members, so star planets, stars in general, guides of all types. And for me, that still, it opened that door where now it's so easy to just bring in that energy and to meet up with these guides for different people. That is amazing. And I'm so grateful that for that class, because now I connect with the stars so much simple. It's so easy now. Now it always was easier with Reiki, but now it's gone beyond easy. Now it's like I can just talk to guides. And what happens with Reiki, I find that it opens more doors for more frequencies to come in. So we accepted that energy easily. We were used to energy work. So the energy coming in was great. But now for me to keep developing the path I am on with the stars, it's just incredible. What about for you?
I would say it was having the realization that I was accessing all of these pathways when I was doing Reiki, or even before Reiki, when I was out in nature and I would see messages in trees, or the clouds would form a shape and have a message for me. It was almost such a relief to be able to name, because I knew that it wasn't the protocol of Reiki, even though the energy of Reiki to me holds it all. So it's that dichotomy, right? Like, it wasn't the protocol of Reiki that we're taught, and it's not necessary for Reiki. To me, it gave me this epiphany that what I was experiencing through Reiki is what Cindy would call the divine pathway.
Yes.
Which is, for me, it was opening up to the ineffable, to the greater spirit, to the safest and purest and loving energy, where really, nothing can go wrong. And then from that pathway, I was accessing all these other pathways that she described, one of which was the imaginal realm. And so I realized that when I was doing sessions and I would see an animal, or I would have a crystal come to my mind that was told to drop the essence of that crystal into a chakra, or, as you said, there were different beings, etc. I realized, for me, that I was branching off into that pathway, and that I was actually accessing that in my sessions. And so it really informed me and helped me to understand what was actually happening in my sessions.
It's true, because with Reiki, you do access all of them, but we don't give a specific names, because that wasn't something that's taught in traditional Reiki. It's not. But I find that Reiki opens up what we need to have opened up, whether it's possibilities here in the physical realm, whether it's spiritual in nature, whether it's, elemental. It does open it up. I found that for me, my transformational vibrations channel has gone on into such deep realms that it never would have had I not experienced that class, to be able to understand that Reiki can go on beyond. It accesses all those realms, and we can go beyond that. And that's what people don't understand. For me, Reiki has been a stepping stone, and it continues to be a stepping stone to so many other things.
Yeah. I view it as this beautiful container that I'm held in safely, and then I'm just accessing within that container. Like, I consider it like this pillar of light. Within this pillar of light, I'm asking for all of the information to come to me. So I'm not actually venturing out or astral traveling or anything like that. I don't have to have those skills. I'm asking for it to come to me, and it's like it's brought to me, all of those different things. And I find that really fascinating.
It's true. It's so funny, because even if you turn on YouTube, like I'm always listening to different people on YouTube and stuff, and what you need will come to you. It brings it in a much easier way, I find, than if I were out there without Reiki. If I were out there without Reiki, I don't think I'd be half as calm. And I'm not always calm, but I wouldn't be as open as I am to many things if it hadn't been for Reiki.
You know, for me, that brings something up for me. For me, I feel that had I not been introduced to Reiki and really built that trust with this divine energy of all knowing and really that surrender that is really integral to Reiki, it's the surrender and letting the greater presence guide us. I think had I gone off into the imaginal realms without that training, without that safety net, that there is this potential for getting into some trouble spiritually and connecting with some energies that might not have the best and greatest intentions. So
I agree.
I think it's important to note that as well if people are listening here when we're talking about all these different realms as well.
I think having that spiritual, having that background, that energetic background, doesn't have to be spiritual, but the energy background that Reiki brings really does aid you in so many ways. I wouldn't suggest to people to start doing things, trying things without having that, what you call the safety net. And I agree.
Right.
Because it aids you in focusing on being strong, being grounded, being protected. And because I've met so many people who are not, and I'm like, we really need to make sure you're grounded and protected before you do this. You know, you just can't do that. I remember telling my nephew was astral projecting. I go, honey, before you start astral projecting, and he was only 8. And I was like, we need to make sure you're tied to the earth before you go flying. So you can leave your body if you want, but make sure. And I trained him in Reiki, you know, to make sure that he was grounded so that if he wanted to go astral projecting, he could.
Yeah, it is a very compassionate energy.
Yes.
If I had one word to describe it, I think I might describe it as compassionate.
Yes. That's what I find that has been the strength of Reiki, the compassion, you know, and not only compassion for others, but for yourself.
Mm.
That's so important. We are not compassionate with ourselves. Let's face it. We are taught that, you know, you should be perfect, that you need to do it all, that's our society. Do it all, do it quickly, do it fast. You have to be the best mother, best employee, best wife. How can you? Seriously, there's no way you can do it all. And just learning that you can't, but being compassionate enough to love yourself, even if you can't do what society says. I was an event coordinator, and I was working on people at lunchtime in my office. That wasn't exactly what was, you know, the usual.
Yeah.
Even though I was in a very creative field, they weren't that creative.
I can totally see that.
I
can totally see that. It's like, that doesn't surprise me knowing you.
No, I would open the door at lunchtime. People would come in. I would have lunch, sit down. Let me see what your problem is. Sometimes it wasn't even, I remember I was working with one of the engineers, and he goes, you know, I'm having this pain in my elbow, can't get rid of it. I said, let me just have your elbow. I said, can I touch you for a few minutes? I touched him for 5 minutes. After that, he goes, he never had that pain ever again. And then he was like, I didn't believe in this, but there's something, isn't there, to that? And I go, yeah, there may be.
I love it.
Well, that's our experiences. But see, we are willing to follow our path. And our path isn't going where most people go. And we don't know where it's going to go.
No. And we invite all of you to come along with us.
Yes. We love
Come
sharing
on.
Reiki. People don't understand that there's this joy of sharing this energy.
Oh,
You know, mystical experiences are lovely. Mediumship is lovely. But just being able to send energy that may help someone improve their life, even for 1 minute, that's what this is about.
Beautifully
The
said.
possibilities, you know, that for 1 second, the person may see the possibilities of what can be.
And that's all it takes, is that seed, that one potential, and then it just opens.
Yes. That's what it is, that one potential. And, you know, you don't have to totally believe, but if you are just open to whatever happens, that just let it happen. You don't have to have an experience like this. You don't even have to feel it. I remember that in that same job, working on, one of the vice presidents came in, he goes, you know, I'm really having this backache, you know. So I said, and he's not open to any of this. He wasn't open. And he even said it, I'm not open to this. I said, let me just do this. Well, within 24 hours, he was fine. But it took longer for him because he resisted, but it assisted him. And so he goes, there might be something. And I go, yeah, might be.
See, I love this whole experience that you're talking about, where you're working in really kind of like corporate America, right?
Yes, it was corporate America.
Right. And so when we're exploring with these type of energies and these modalities, we don't have to go out and be energy healers. I mean, we can if we want.
Yes.
But there's an opportunity every aspect of life for us to share that energy, whether it's explicitly like you're describing, people coming to you and you know, hey, I heard that you might be able to help me, or that type of thing, or even just holding that energy when we're with people. And the energy naturally has this effect of rippling out and helping to stabilize an environment, for example.
Well, I would send Reiki to my events because you never know what's going to happen in an event. And so, you know, there were big events, you know, there were events where the president would come, and then there were smaller events, you know, when it's just 20 people. But whatever happened, I always sent energy for the most positive results and the most positive feelings, if it was in their highest good.
Yeah.
And that's always the caveat, if it's in a person's highest good. Because if it's not, then it won't work, and that's fine. Wasn't meant for them.
And that's another thing about Reiki, that what you just described, that's what it teaches us, that we're not interfering. We're not interfering with the free will of others.
Yes.
I love that.
And that's what's the most important part. So you know, even with that car accident, I had always sent Reiki, and I still do to this day, for any car trip I'm on, before that and after that. And, you know, it helped. I know it helped, because I know we shouldn't have walked out of that car. There was no way we should have walked out of it. And we both did.
Yeah.
So I know there was a higher force working on there, if you want to put it that way.
Well, this conversation could go on and on and on, and
Yes.
we'll talk again another time. We have lots of stories, I'm sure. I can tell that you do.
You do too.
I know. But it's awesome to be able to have this just very open discussion. The other thing that I would like people to know is that you mentioned that you were intuitive at a younger age.
Yes.
But I was not. So here we have like somebody that was and somebody that wasn't. And we're both equally able and capable of tapping into this mystical energy, these experiences. And that's what I want you to know as well, that everybody has this opportunity, this potential, this connection in their own unique way. Don't settle for less.
Yes. And you know what's so funny? We're mentioning this. Both of us have YouTube channels. I know you have 4 Leaf for Life Reiki. Love your channel. I'm playing your videos in the car at all time when I'm not driving, when my husband's driving. And people can have experiences just from those short videos. It doesn't
Yes.
take a long time to receive energy to have an experience. And you can do it for free. What more could you want?
Lourdes has helped me immensely with my YouTube channel, which is small and beautiful and lovely.
I love it.
And she has this amazing community and channel as well with 70,000 subscribers. So I would invite you, listeners, viewers, if you haven't already, to go check out Lourdes, her YouTube channel, her offerings, her website. Where can they find you, Lourdes?
They can find me on YouTube. Rest Relaxation Reiki is the main channel. Transformational Vibrations is for those who want to try flying to stars with me. That's the one. And Metaphysical Life is just to assist us with manifesting a better life. But my website is reikifromlourdes.com, and I highly recommend your channel because you have such a lovely energy and your voice brings forth such beautiful frequencies that I don't know, you don't hear yourself like I hear you. And it's just so soothing and calming. And that word again, compassion, comes through with what you do. So I recommend that people go to yours because I go to your channel. When I want to get energy, yours is the one I go to.
And likewise. And so we've done some collaborations as well, so they can
Yes.
look on our playlists and find some things where we have complementary playlists. And I'll put a few of those down below as well in the notes. Thank you so much, Lourdes. It's been such a privilege and such a pleasure to talk with you today.
It's always a pleasure and a privilege, like you said, to talk with you because we never know what's going to come up.
I know. It's so fun.
It is.